Okay, I have published a new book. It's called 101 Beginner Idioms. Isn't that exciting? Do you like idioms? Well, I think this book is really going to help you. I think you're going to love this book. If you want to get a copy of this book, I'll put the link to my website right down there in the description. Okay, so take a look at the title, Beginner Idioms. Beginner idioms. The problem with that is that idioms are advanced, right? Idioms are pretty hard. Like, do you know any idioms? You know, beginner students don't start learning English by learning idioms. And even a lot of advanced English students don't know any idioms, right? I think that's one of the biggest differences between native English speakers and non-native English speakers. Native English speakers use idioms all the time. Like, I use idioms all the time when I speak English to other native English speakers, right? If I'm speaking to a non-native English speaker, then usually I don't use idioms. But, you know, non-native English speakers, they, you know, in my experience, they don't even try to learn idioms. You know, and I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem because if you speak English without idioms, it's sort of like eating dry bread. You know, do you like eating dry bread? Is that all you eat? Right? If you speak English, it's sort of like eating bread. Can you survive by just eating bread? Will you live? Yeah, you'll probably live. You can live by eating bread and drinking water, right? But if you use some idioms in your English, it's like eating a spicy Indian curry, a zesty Indian curry, right? It's full of life and full of flavor. I love Indian food, right? It's much more exciting than just eating dry bread. Okay, so that's why I want to help you learn idioms so that your English is not like dry bread. I want your English to be like a zesty Indian curry. Okay, so this is actually my second book that I've published. My first book was Advanced Idioms. Okay, both books have 101 idioms. So if you use both of these books, you'll have more than 200 idioms. That's a lot of idioms. I think that will help add a lot of flavor to your English. Now, this is advanced and that one is beginner. Is there a big difference between these? To be honest, I don't think there's a big difference. I just tried to put the harder idioms in this book and the easier idioms in that book. Right? Like, let's take the idiom walk on eggshells. Have you ever heard someone say, I'm walking on eggshells? Is that an advanced idiom or is that a beginner idiom? Well, I don't know, right? But like I said, I tried to put the harder ones in this book and I tried to put the easier ones in that book. So if you are a beginner English student, I think you should try to start with that book. But if you're just starting to learn English, then these books probably are not for you. If you are an intermediate English student, I think this book, the beginner one, would be great for you. And if you're advanced, then I think this book. But I think these books would be able to help everybody. So if you're interested in learning idioms, I think you could use both of these books. They're very simple. I'll show you, okay? So this is an example of a page. Just one page in the book, okay? One idiom per page. So here's the idiom in the red color, and then this second part here with the greenish color, that's the definition, okay? And then the yellow part is the examples, and then the last part here is my notes. Okay, maybe I want to tell you something about the idiom. Maybe we only use this idiom in very informal, casual situations. So you'll just see those 4 colors. Okay, so every page just looks like this. You're just going to see 4 colors. Okay, so let's take a look at a real example from my book. Okay, so the idiom is wrap your head around something. Wrap your head around something. Do you know what that means? Well, that means to understand something that doesn't make sense to you. Okay, so if you try to wrap your head around something, that means you're trying to understand something that is confusing. It doesn't really make sense. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples here. When I moved to China, I thought electronic devices would be cheaper there because they're made there. Right? Most electronic devices are made in China. Okay, actually, they're more expensive. I can't wrap my head around that. I can't wrap my head around that. Actually, this is true. When I lived in Shanghai for a year, okay, and before I moved to China, I thought, you know what? Electronic devices are going to be very cheap in China. You know, like computers, kitchen devices like a blender or a fan or something like that. I thought electronic devices are going to be cheap in China because, every time you look at an electronic device, it says made in China, right? Everything is made in China. Let's see if this is made in China. Nope, it's made in California. Okay, so my Apple TV is not made in China, but most things are made in China, right? So I thought they would be cheap, but when I got there, I discovered that they're actually more expensive than back in Canada, right? If you want to buy an iPhone, it's more expensive, or a lot of phones. Phones seem to be expensive in China, or like computers, or every kind of electronic device. I was shocked at how expensive electronics were in China, right? So I couldn't wrap my head around that. Okay, now let's take a look at another example. Sorry, my throat is a bit raspy. When it's sort of making that noise, then we say that's a raspy throat. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. Some girls are willing to pay $5,000 for a handbag. I can't wrap my head around that. $5,000 for a handbag? What? I can't figure that out. I can't understand that. I can't wrap my head around that. That's crazy. Have you ever spent $5,000 on a handbag? Hey, maybe I should start making handbags. Mad handbags. Would you buy a mad handbag for $5,000? Wow, I'd be rich. That's such a good idea. I think I should change my company from English teaching to making handbags so that I can afford to buy a house. It'd be a good idea. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. I'm trying to wrap my head around this problem. Maybe you're doing some math homework and the problem is really hard to solve. You don't understand it. You could say, I'm trying to wrap my head around this math problem. Okay, so there are some examples. Now let's just take a look at a note that I put here. Most of the time we use this idiom with the word can't. I can't wrap my head around it. Okay, so we use this idiom when we are trying to figure something out. I can't wrap my head around that. I can't wrap my head around. Okay, so let's take a look at another idiom here. A blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. Do you know what that means? Well, that means something that seems bad but later turns out to be good. Okay, something that seems bad but later turns out to be good. Okay, let's take a look at an example. Having a heart attack turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I met the cutest nurse who later became my wife. Wow, what a blessing in disguise, right? It was bad. You had a heart attack, right? That's a very bad thing. But if you hadn't had your heart attack, then you would have never met that cute nurse who became your wife, right? So having a heart attack was a blessing in disguise. Okay, let's look at another example. I was so upset when I missed my flight, but it was a blessing in disguise because the plane crashed. Wow, that would be a big blessing in disguise, right? If you miss your flight and then the plane crashes, wow, it saved your life. right? Your life is saved. Okay, let's look at the last example here. Sometimes tragedy can be a blessing in disguise because it teaches you how fragile life is. That's true. Sometimes, people think they're going to live forever, right? And then someone in their family dies. And then it makes you stop and think, wow, life it just doesn't go on forever. I better start living a better life, right? Okay, so there are some examples. Now let's take a look at my notes, okay? We often use this idiom to talk about serious life events like sickness, but you can also use it to talk about other things too. For example, the restaurant forgot about our reservation, but it was a blessing in disguise because they gave us a free lunch, right? Yeah, that's not a big event, right? You went to a restaurant, they made a mistake, and then they gave you a free lunch, right? Sometimes restaurants do that. If they make a mistake, they give you something for free, right? You could say that's a blessing in disguise. Okay, so let's take a look at another one here. A lot on my plate. A lot on my plate. What does that mean? Do you know what that means? That means that you have many responsibilities. You're busy. Okay, Jim is stressed out these days because he's working 2 jobs and taking care of his parents. He has a lot on his plate right now, right? He's really stressed out because he's so busy. He's working 2 jobs, he's taking care of his family, maybe they're sick. He's got a lot of things on his plate. Okay, let's take a look at another example here. Bob, I'd love to go fishing with you, but I have a lot on my plate this month. Can you wait till summertime? I've got a lot on my plate. Okay, I have a lot on my plate at work these days. I have to train new recruits and manage the front desk. I have to train maybe you work in a hotel, right? You have to manage the front desk and you have to train all the new employees, at the hotel, and you're so busy, right? You have a lot on your plate. Okay, so that's it. Hey, do you use idioms? I want to know. Do you use it? Be honest. Okay, be honest. How often do you use idioms in English? Do you know any idioms? If you don't know any, that's okay, because now you can use my 2 books and learn more than 200 idioms. But let me know your answer to this question down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.